didn't happen. Jason strangled her and hung himself. I had no, this was not a black thing. This was murdered my daughter. But a year or so later, Peggy's brother, kind of raised in the South, good southern white old boy, we were texting back and forth. I liked him until that time too. He said, "What's the weather like?" And it was this time of the year. I said, "Well, we're supposed to get some snow." Well, he said, "Fire department hopes you get buried by a effing blizzard." And I texted back, "What are you talking about?" "You know what I'm talking about." And then he called me. "So you know what I'm talking about? It's your fault. My niece got murdered." "It's my fault." "I figure it's my fault." And excuse the words I'm going to use. He said, "Because you let her marry a nigger." I said, "What?" Barb was an adult. She had all. "What would you have said if this would have been a white man? Because they do it too." "Oh, a white man wouldn't do this."
Let me tell you.
Right, but that's what I told him. I said, "He's an alcoholic. He's, you know, he said, and he was drunk when he said it."
Yeah.
But he said, I said, "Maybe you better crawl out of that whiskey bottle and read the news and see how many white men have murdered their wives, their kids, their in-laws." He didn't want to hear that because he didn't believe it.
Super.
So I see this and I realize growing up, I heard a lot of that. You can't trust black men. You don't trust, you know, I heard it from my family. And then what happened, after what happened.
Well, you heard it from your family also because his parents divorced when he was 8 years old and his mother married a black man. And so, you know, and he never had contact with her again.
Well, because I knew, and to explain, I knew why she found love, because my father was an abusive piece of crap.
Yes.
Yeah. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I was able to see those things.
Yeah, and I think so much of what we've discovered as people have studied the discussion of race is that people will latch onto one personal experience that for them solidifies what they've been taught. So even if they have 12 other examples that would contradict it, we find the one that fits the narrative that works for us. And that's what we tend to run with. And I think that this does a really good job of demonstrating that representation matters, and what we're fed through media and through political discourse is going to shape what we think that we're seeing out in the world.
You know, for some of us, we lived those years. And I guess I never, ever really thought politically that what they were saying was full circle, that it went back to race or gender or whatever. I lived that, and I was younger, and maybe I didn't understand, but that, it just makes me go, oh my gosh, I had no idea, you know. And I think that's a difficult thing if you have grown up with that. And I think that's where you go, oh, I didn't know that was going on.
Which is exactly why they spun it that way.
Yes,
Because I think,
because
as we know from the media today, you can take the same situation and spin it 14 different ways, depending what channel you watch. And so that was their, I agree with you completely. You know, they were talking about the war on drugs, and I didn't realize that it was really as much a war on blacks as it was a war on drugs.
I chuckled because they showed Richard Nixon. We got to get the criminal, and we're thinking, yeah, talk saying that from a book himself.
I live.
I was going to say what struck me was how little things have changed. How rhetoric has almost identified today. And that was what really struck me. What also really struck me was that Gingrich made some of this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand that because he's still saying those things today. So why is he showing up on this documentary? Like being honest, an honest broker?
Yeah.
That struck me as odd.
And I'll say, since we probably will have to sort of skip some of the next section next week, they also really do go after the Clintons and 1994, shoot, what's that act? Criminal something or other.
Yeah.
But essentially, I mean, like, it enabled millions more black men to go to prison. So it just became an issue that to be a successful politician, you had to be tough on crime. Like, that was the terminology, and everybody bought into it. And so it is really funny to see Newt Gingrich here being honest about race, and then, you know, seeing key Democratic leaders, like, also being dragged into the conversation as part of the problem.
What strikes me as interesting too is that both Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan were adult children of alcoholics who were really, but alcohol's legal. That's what they say. But I'm saying, but it's really twisted. Like, their lives were definitely impacted by alcoholic fathers who were either there or not there. And so I think some of it may have been like not knowing even what they were doing, that they're trying to work something out in themselves by saying, you know what I'm saying? That it had a bad effect, but people do a lot of things that are wrong, and they don't even know why they're doing them. You know what I'm saying? But his handlers probably did. Hey, this shit works. You know, we're gonna use this. But you know, and I didn't vote for Reagan, and I didn't vote for Clinton either.
But that's why, again, you know, again, I don't want to pick on your words, you know, too much, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But, you know, think about how we've rethought all addiction. And, you know, individuals' sensitivity to anything that's inherently addictive, including alcohol. It expands well beyond that. In those years, I would argue that the vast majority of people believed that addiction was a personal weakness. You chose to go down this path. And that's why it was so easy to convince the majority of people that, well, if we just put them away, they can deal with their own personal problems.
Addiction is, and now look at it, it's huge, it's white and black, it's everywhere, and it's out there in the open.
So to some degree, our approaches have only modestly changed, if at all. We still, you know, our first recourse for all these things is actually prison or jail time, rather than treatment. We're trying to understand what are the other components in that individual's life that are making them sort of go down this darker path.
Is to remove the problem as opposed to fix the problem.
That's the illusion that is put forth. Yeah. And that has not worked.
You were going to say something, Dave.
Well, addiction, there's so many ways and venues of addiction. I don't know if that's a problem or if, I'm trying to, there's several things that have been said that I want to address, but I think addictions are a way to better yourself. Being aware of.
Well, it's a way to self-medicate. And hence sort of
The act
alleviate
the
the pain.
addiction is.
Yeah.
And
But I'm looking at the higher side.
Oh, I see.
You know, getting.
yeah, Margie?
Well, what struck, I recently saw the movie Vice.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And the way our leaders, I don't know how much of it is true. I think a lot of it's true. But how they malign and they're devious and take the opportunity to change public opinion, to just get people and make laws that lead to things like this. And it, you know, it makes me want to be so cautious about what I believe and on TV and elsewhere. And you know, really our country is in such bad shape, and this is just the result of some of the leadership that's gone on. It's amazing.
I would argue that that's our fault.
Well,
It's our fault because we don't want to hear the story that this is going to take a long time to fix.
well,
Not only that,
no,
it is going to take a lot of personal
Personal
sacrifice, a lot of economic sacrifice, and these politicians are in office for a very short period of time to fix the problem.
well, the other thing is,
And we are easily swayed
we
by any
voted for
argument they put
them, we
forth.
voted for them,
Yeah.
whoever you voted for, and we allow them to do things like that without protesting.
Yeah.
And we don't write our congressmen, we don't address any of it, we don't take it personally.
And to bring it back just to the lens of race, since that is what we're discussing, I think that I'm really excited to go into the conversation next week, but just remembering that addiction and trauma, you know, you were discussing these presidents with alcoholic, you know, families. Trauma is something that someone can experience regardless of race. But we have entire races that have all experienced trauma. We have intentionally traumatized entire racial groups of people in this country, and that's part of our national legacy. And so when it comes into these conversations about, again, a politician who promises to come in and implement reform, we have to look back at our history too. And so could you reform slavery? Is that possible to do? Can you take a system so unjust and reform it? You can't. You have to abolish it. Abolition is the only response to slavery. So when we look at today's modern problems, there are people who run around and say prison abolition and all these different things like that. And they're very frightening ideas for us to hear. But it has to be part of our conversation if we, especially as radical Christians, want to move forward towards justice in our country. So I think we have to go. People have to get up to church. But thank you so much.